Okay.
Multiple things in the mind is going on. That's the thing we're forgetting.
Yeah. So yesterday I started with the basics of threads. So threads are the fundamental part of execution of a Java program. We took two tasks yesterday. One is addition of a number and other is printing the date. And we used the threads. First, without threads, we added into the program, and then with the threads, we moved to different classes, and we called it. At the closing part of the day, we gave a for loop, and we saw how these are getting executed. So with that, we stop. Today, we will start with the life cycle of a thread. So how does a thread start? How does a thread end? So what is the life cycle of it? So thread has a 5 steps life cycle. First is a thread enters into a new state where the thread, I'm not able to type, yeah. So the thread is first created. The second state of the thread life cycle is usually how the thread usually goes through. What is the starting point, how it executes, and what is the ending point. So from the new, it goes into a runnable state where it is getting ready for
Rajesh, one quick question. You are using the right side. You are using anything? Any notepad?
I'm using on top of the Java program so that I can link with the program and show you.
No, Rajesh, you are something writing, right? How you are writing that life cycle of the thread? Usually in Zoom, it doesn't allow you to write something on the screen, right?
Latest version, they are allowing.
Oh, now we can hit wherever we want, we can write. Okay.
Yes. So I can see here, I can underline this program.
Really?
I can do.
Okay.
Yeah, earlier it was not, but now it is allowing.
Okay.
We used to go to whiteboard, right? Earlier.
Yeah.
Like they are allowing now. So on top of Eclipse, I'm writing.
Okay.
So it goes to the runnable state, and then it goes into running. And there is one state as blocked state if the thread is suspended or it is in wait state where it is waiting for something else to be completed. The final state of the thread is the terminated state. So we also can call this blocked as non-runnable where it cannot run. So when we start a thread, it goes into the new, and from the new it goes to the runnable and running. If we give a sleep method, it is going to go into non-blockable. After the sleep, it is going to go to a runnable state. After the thread is finished, it goes into a termination state. So this is the yes.
This runnable, running, and then it is going to non-runnable. I didn't get the non-runnable and block.
In the program, do you remember we gave a line here?
Yeah, just like sleep like minute of seconds.
So this is a non-runnable state. When we give thread.sleep, it means the thread cannot execute beyond this point. Up to 5 seconds, it has to wait.
Okay, that we call it non-runnable block.
In that case, this is called as blocked state or non-runnable state.
Okay.
So New state is a state when the thread is when it is created, but the thread is not yet called, like this case.
Okay.
Here I just create a thread. This is a new state. When I call this dot start, it becomes a runnable state.
Okay.
And inside this program, when it is inside the run, inside this run method, it becomes the running state. So new state is a state when the thread is created, and runnable is a state where we start the we call the start method of the thread. Running is a state when the thread actually starts the execution, and non-runnable when the thread is still there, but it cannot run because we have given a sleep.
Okay.
And termination is a state where the thread is no longer active and it has stopped finishing. So this is how this is a simple life cycle of a thread. Now, next is how do we create a thread? We saw yesterday using two methods. That is why I gave two different programs. First is I can create a thread object. If you see the documentation, it is accepting a runnable interface or runnable as a target. So allocates a new thread. The constructor has the same effect as null. Okay. Parameter. Okay. So for this syntax, if you want to go thread equal to new thread, then you have to pass a runnable target. So I created a class which implements the runnable interface, and I get a run method by default. I can give the logics inside this method. This is one way of creating the thread. The other way of creating a thread is using new. Instead of giving thread equal to new thread, I'll give the class, our own class equal to new our own class. But the only thing is the class must extend the thread. These are the two different ways. Next question. You may wonder, like, can I call the run method directly? I have a run method inside the class, correct? But I am calling start method, which is not there in the class. This dot start is not in the direct class, but it is there in the thread class. If I go to the thread class, I'll have a control O. I can see all the attributes and the methods. So I should see the methods also. Control O. So I have the start here. See, green color means it is a public method, so I can call it. So the common thought is, why do we call the start and why can't we call the run? This is also allowed, but if you call like this, it will not be a thread. It will become like a regular method calling inside a class object.
Okay.
You should know the difference between run and start. Start, even though it is not there in this particular class, it is there in the super class. When we call the start, it is indirectly going to call the run method internally using a thread. That is why we don't call the run, but if you call the run, the program will work like a normal Java program where we call the function. Like if I have a function here, public void add, what will I do? I will use the syntax, right? Class object equal to new class and object dot add. This is how I'll call. So if you call run, it is same like how we call a function. That will not be considered as a thread, even though you have extended the thread class. So you have to call the start method for the thread to start. So the two way of creating a thread is by extending the thread class, and the other way is by implementing the runnable interface. And when we create a thread equal to new thread of no, that is another way. Okay, so this is one. Can you see my screen? Hello.
Yeah, Rajesh.
Okay, good.
Why you got that out?
No, I get an alert that the participants can now see your screen. So I was wondering,
No.
that means so far they are not able to see my screen or not. So I got a doubt. Okay, so the thread is done, the life cycle is done. How do we create a thread? That is also done. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I'm good on Rajesh.
No. Okay. In the regular Java program, without this thread, let us forget this threads for some time. In the regular program itself, we have a, if you want to pause the program for some time, like the program has to start, and let's say the program has to finish exiting the Java program. Let's say I have a statement like this. When I run this program, both will come at the same time because it is fast. Within microseconds, it will, milliseconds, the first one will come and second one. Let us say I want to do a pause here. I can give a for loop. For int start value equal to 0, start value less than 1000, start value plus, do nothing. So this loop will just run 1000 times. If I give this, it is fast again. If I give 10,000 times, again it is fast. Let's say I'll give a sys out here. It will take some time. Start value. So now at least, yeah, even though it is very fast. So if I give like this, at least it's some time it is taking, like maybe 10 seconds. No, it will take 100 seconds then. So let me reduce 10 here. I'll comment that. So again, it is fast. So this is one way where you can increase this and you can pause. The easiest way is we have a common syntax which I have been using so far. If you observed it, thread.sleep. I've been using it a lot in throughout the class. Wherever I need a pause, I'll give here thread.sleep, 1000 milliseconds. It is the value should be in milliseconds. If I give 10,000, it is going to be 10 seconds. 1000 milliseconds is 1 second. So thread.sleep of 10 seconds. So this thread is the main thread which see here, there is a 10 seconds delay. So this thread is the default thread of the main program. So when we give thread.sleep, we are pausing the default thread of the program. So just wanted to bring that point at this stage so that you should understand what is thread.sleep. And next is, can we, coming back to our thread now, can I call thread.start 2 times? what will happen?
Nothing is going to happen.
There will be an exception. I'll just comment this out. I don't want to see any outputs now because just for understanding purpose, I gave these things. If I run this way, see, we get an error exception, that illegal thread state exception, because the thread is already started. We cannot start the thread twice.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is I showed you how do we, like, what will happen if we call the run directly. So it is going to act like there is no thread. It's just going to execute. Okay, next is like I've rarely used, let me just try out. We have something as thread dot join. So what will thread dot join will do, that this will wait for the thread to die. But okay, I'll show it later because I've not tried it. I want to just try it before I can show you. Okay, so what else is there in the thread? So we can get the name of the thread by using the get name method. So example, here I want to print what is a thread name. I can go like sysout thread obj dot get name dot to string. Okay, if I go get name, thread 0 is the name which is given. So I can set a name also. Thread obj dot set name first thread. So see here, now the name is coming as first thread. This get name is giving us a first thread. So that is how we, the threads are very useful if you understand it correctly and if you like put into action properly. And threads are, as I said, threads are used in the servers for handling the multiple requests. And we have the priority of the threads also. Like we can give a high priority and low priority from 1 to 10. Like in that priority, the threads will be executing. Let us say for the first thread, if you give minimum priority, where is the, I'll delete these things. Now we have this thread 1 and thread 2. So I will create these threads first and then I will call the start method. So if I'm going to give like thread obj dot set priority, set priority will accept a number. I can give thread dot min priority and thread obj2 dot set priority thread dot max, which means the thread 2 will have the first priority and it will start executing first, and then the thread 1 will start.
Rajesh, could you please go to, we are calling this thread main program in the main program.java.
This is the main program.
Which one? Current one is the main program?
Yeah.
Okay. Main program.java, that one?
Which one? No, that is a separate program. Different project. I'll
Okay.
post that.
Usually, if you want to call this thread main program, no.
No, thread main program is the main program, right? So we run it as.
This is separate. Okay, this is separate main program in Java. That's what we're telling.
Yes.
Okay. Usually we can't call in main program.java. Usually we will create subclasses and those classes we are going to call in main program.java. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes,
same
you are
thing.
right.
Okay, the same thing we are creating thread main thread.
We just in the subclass, your understanding is completely right. In the subclass, just give extends thread. It becomes a thread. It becomes eligible for a thread. That's all.
Okay,
this is the subclass. I mean, this is another class, right? That's what you're meaning, right? This one, we will be creating an object. We are creating, see here, this class object equal to new class. This is a normal class. Just the name I have given thread. It's a normal class.
Okay. I'm clear.
Okay. And apart from this, we have something called as daemon thread. So daemon thread is a daemon thread. So daemon thread is a thread which is provided by the JVM for fulfilling the user action. So that is a thread which will be first starting up for providing the for creating the user threads and all those things. If there are no other threads available, then the daemon thread will stop. I am not sure if I can show a daemon thread here.
Could you please repeat the statement, Rajesh?
Yes, I will do 1 second. Run as debug as Java application. Usually there used to be something as daemon thread. Okay, here we don't see it. This is the main program. The daemon thread, there is a thread called as daemon thread, which will be running by the JVM, or which is a daemon thread is a service provider thread, where that is the starting thread. You assume like the main program has to be started by someone, right? Main program is a thread. JVM starts it, but how JVM starts it? Using the daemon thread, it starts it. And if there are no other threads available, or if all the threads has completed its feature, then JVM will terminate the daemon thread.
Okay.
Let us see. I can do one thing. We have a method here to see thread dot is current thread. Thread dot current thread dot is daemon. If it becomes true when the current thread is the daemon thread. False. It is not a daemon thread. We can see how daemon threads. I mean, if there are any daemon threads.
Okay.
So these are just concepts. You will not use it anywhere, but you have to just know that's all. And so another theory is we have a thread pool, the same like how we saw a connection pool in database, right? In the Hibernate, I said you that there will be a C3P0 connection pool where around 10 or 20 configurable connections will be available, so we can reuse it. The same way in Java, we have a thread pool where multiple worker thread will be available, and we can use it for We can use it, and then it will be sent back to the pool, and we can reuse it every time we want.
Okay.
So that is something concept wise, and I think that's all. So I'm done with the threads. Any questions so far? I think these are straightforward.
No, I'm good. Yeah, straightforward.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just go through the syllabus. Okay, I think I'm done. Oh, one thing I wanted to tell you. I didn't speak so far about JVM, which is very important part. So, like few minutes, we'll go over JVM for today.
Okay.
So, I'll go back here. All right. So, in web application, we saw that Tomcat is like a fish tank where all the objects reside inside it, and the Tomcat maintains the object, get the request. So it does the pretty much the work of a fish tank for a fish to survive. So JVM is also a fish tank, or it is a container where the programs can run. So if you take JVM, Java Virtual Machine, the name itself, like it is a virtual machine where we can load this. JVM is responsible for loading the classes and running it. When we write a Java program, JVM is the one which will cause our application to run. So the basic components of a JVM are first and the main is a class loader. This is responsible for loading the classes. I'll come into each of the box now. And after the class loader, we have the JVM will have its own memory. Inside this memory, it has different areas. One is for methods, other is for heaps and JVM language stacks, the PC register, and the native method stacks. And at the end, we have a execution engine. We have a native method engine and native method library. So there are few, and so I'll just name it quickly. Method area. And heap, where all of our results are stored. The JVM language stack, PC register, native method stack. We have the execution engine. We have the native method interface. And we have the native method libraries. Okay. The reason I am taking at the end is now you have a basic knowledge of, or you have used all of these in the program. So now if I tell we have used this jar, this is where it is, then you will be able to link it. That is the reason I take at the end. If I tell everything at the starting, you will have no idea of what native libraries are, and you cannot link it. So let's go over one by one. Okay. So JVM is a specification. Okay, how the mission should be, how a Java virtual machine where the Java program has to run has to be designed. That's what a specification is, and it is an implementation. The JVM's implementation is called a JRE, Java Runtime Environment. You would have heard of this. To run a Java program, JRE is enough. And we have a term as JDK, which is Java Development Kit. We don't need a JDK for executing. We just need a JRE. So what JVM does, I said JVM is a fish tank. The tank, the responsibility of a tank is to receive the fish, to provide sufficient environment for the fish so that the fish can survive there. And so all the infrastructure will be there in the tank. The water will not leak out, and cleaning of the tank. So all these things has to be provided by the tank. So JVM loads the code. It verifies that the code which we are writing is correct, and then it executes the code. It provides the environment for the codes to run. It provides when we write a code like integer number 1, number 2, result equal to number 1 plus number 2. We need a memory to store the number 1, number 2, and the result. So JVM provides a memory area for the result, and it provides a garbage collection. So everything is provided by the JVM. So the first section which I showed is the class loader. This section. So the class loader is used to load the class files. So in our case, when we write any Java program, we will be having a class file. How do we see the class file? Two ways are there. Either you go to show navigation, perspective, open perspective. There is a navigator perspective. No, Windows show view. Windows show view, other, type navigator. Of course, it's deprecated. Navigator, threads.java. See here in the bin, we have a class file, .class. Whatever we have created, the class files are there. So this class file will be loaded by the class loader. Someone has to, this class file is there in our hard disk, right? So if I go to properties, and here it is residing in the bin com and Rajesh, the class file is here. So someone has to take the responsibility of is my screen visible? I don't see it. Hello. Okay.
Now I can hear you.
Yeah. Now I see it. Yeah, there was a delay. So the class file is available in this particular folder, right? So someone has to take the responsibility of loading the class file into the JVM and start executing it. So whatever logic we have written, someone has to take the responsibility, and that is done by the class loader. So that is what class loader does it. The next is the class loader. There are different types of class loaders. Bootstrap loader, there is an extension loader and application loader. We'll not go detail into it, but the class loader is the one which calls the rt.jar. This alone you have to know. Just I'll write it.
Rajesh, sorry to interrupt here. JDK, JRE, Java Development Kit, the whole thing, the table inside the whole thing, it will come under JDK.
I'm JVM.
Okay,
It is I'm talking about the execution part.
okay.
Writing part we can write in Notepad also. Java programs can be written in Notepad. We don't need an Eclipse. Because it is just a .java file, right? I can open up a Notepad, write something and just save as .java. Got it?
Yeah, Rajesh.
Okay. So,
It's like, I don't know, Rajesh, why it's lagging like 4 seconds. Hello? Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay.
I think on my end, the internet.
But I just checked my speed. It is a good speed. My internet is good today. No issues. Okay. So yeah, is it clear for you? JRE is what we are speaking now.
My question, Rajesh, on the right side at the top, you wrote JDK and JRE, right?
Yes.
JDK will come Java Development Kit. That means that you are explaining
for writing the codes.
Okay.
For running the codes, it is JRE.
Could you please repeat it?
For writing the code, it is JDK. For running the code, it is JRE.
Okay, that means these two are different packages. I can't say packages.
Not totally different. They have common libraries. One is specifically only for writing, which will have, it is like a workshop and the actual road. Workshop, you will have lots of tools, right? For building a car, which you don't need while driving a car.
Okay.
That's way. So JDK will have lots of features or tools for the developers to develop the Java program. But once they are done, they know they don't need a JDK. It is too heavy. They just need a lightweight JRE to run. That's all.
Okay. Now it's clear. Now this Java Virtual Machine. This is different topic, not related to JDK and JRE.
So JVM is JRE's Java Virtual Machines specification is JRE. JRE comes
from please Rajesh.
Like this.
Okay, JRE comes from one of the specification from JVM. Okay.
Yes, this is a specification. Java Virtual Machine is a specification, and JRE is one of them.
Okay.
So many people develop their own virtual machines. So now you got it?
Yeah, I got it.
So the class loader is the first thing which will load the classes. So the class loader, it has to first load its internal jar, which is Java's jar.
And one more thing, Rajesh, if you see the code behind the diagram, the JDBC example, June, main program, this everything on the left side, behind this diagram on the left side, you can see that JDBC example. These ones, everything is inside the JVM. We can see.
No. It is all in the hard disk.
Okay.
JVM loads this into the the class loader, the first box which I am telling. This will load the files into the JVM from the hard disk.
Okay. Now I'm good.
Okay. So the class loader responsibility is to load the file, point number 1, rt.jar. Load the file from the system library into the JVM, JRE library into the JVM. If the user has provided their own custom library into the JVM. Now let's go back to the all of our project, whatever we have done so far. If you remember and you recollect, we have given pom.xml, and what pom.xml will do will bring the set of jars from the internet into the Maven dependencies folder. If I go back here, let's go to JDBC example, Maven dependency. See here, we used Hibernate jars, right? These are the jars we used for our program. Do you remember? When writing Hibernate, we use hibernate.jar. In the pom.xml, we gave an entry. So all these jar came from the internet.
Yes, yes. Just we are going to grab from internet when we are
Yes. So these jars came just to the hard disk. You see there, C:users 9014 M2 repository.
No, now I'm good, Rajesh. It's clear. Just we're getting the files, we're going to, it's not importing, just we're going to load the files to class loader. The class loader is in JVM and it's going to.
Correct. These files from the hard disk will be loaded. So this come under point number 3. That's why I opened this. This is a custom library.
Okay.
Point number 2 is, here it is, JRE system library. See there?
Okay.
These are point number 2. This is point number 1, rt.jar.
Okay.
Every project you create, any project you go there, JRE system library rt.jar will be there. Because this is like a ignition for a car, where this is the key. The first jar which will be loaded is RT, which is RT stands for runtime. RT, runtime. So any Java project you create will have this JRE library rt.jar and its own dependency. So the rt.jar is point number 1. The rest of the things like resources, JSSC, these are all jars which are needed by the JVM. That is point number 2, JRE jar. Now the third jar is, if the user has used any Maven, there will be something else like Maven dependency. This project, there is no point number 3. This project, there is no point number 3. Here we have point number 3, custom library. So these also will be loaded by the class library into the JVM. Now you are able to link. Can you link this now with whatever we have studied so far?
Yeah,
there is a delay, Jana. I think I'm not able to hear.
Yeah, now you can hear, right?
Yes, I can hear now.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how it happens with all the, in even the web application, whatever we develop, whatever custom library you are downloading from the internet for Log4j, for web service, for DB, MySQL, whatever, that will be point number 3. So class loader's duty is to first load rt.jar, second the JRE library, third is the custom library. So that is the class loader. Now we'll go to the second part, which is the class area. We have the method area. We can also call the class area. So these are the space where the classes are loaded. The fields, methods, and the data for the codes are loaded. In our case, let us take our current thread example. What are the classes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In bin I showed you, we have like 3 plus 2, 5 classes. These classes, inside these classes, we have methods, correct? This is a main method. we have this method, we have a run, we have few number one, number two, result. These are all integer attributes. We have a result, we have this method, right? These all will be loaded in the method area.
Okay.
So whatever whatever the class structures are there, the constants, fields, methods, data, all these will be loaded into the class area. So this is a area where where the JVM loads the classes and the methods.
Okay.
Next, we have the heap. Next, we have the heap. The heap is the area where the results are, where the objects are allocated. So in this case, what are the objects? This is an object. This is an object. So we create an object here, right?
Yes.
This goes into the heap area. So just the structure of the class alone without the objects goes into the method area. Any objects which you create goes into the heap area. And we have the next, the language area or the stack area, where all the results are stored. Local variable results are all stored there.
Okay. Rajesh, these ones will come in under in data structures, right?
No, this comes under the core Java basics.
No, in my college there's this heap stack.
Oh, yeah. That is about the memory. They would have taken the basics.
Okay.
Of heaps.
Okay.
Heaps are the region in the memory or hard disk which is used for storing the data. So something like that it would come usually. So in Java also we get an error like heap space error.
Okay.
Usually the developers will get the heap space error, meaning the heap is not having sufficient space to load the objects.
Okay.
Now the third is the stack. So stack stores the results. And next we have the program counter. The program counter stores the address in the JVM where the current thread is, where the current instruction. In microprocessor in college you would have studied the instructions. Did it come for you? Yeah, so 8085 or 8086, that's a traditional thing which
microcontroller.
So we have the instructions, right? INR, we used to type something INR, and so those are the, what is that? Those are the instructions are like in the thread I showed, right? Every individual step, that is an instruction. So PCR register will hold the address of the instruction that is currently being executed. And native stack contains all the native methods used in the application. Native method is like we call C and C++ methods in Java. So those are called native. Anything other than the C and anything other than the Java program, those are stored in the native method stacks. So let's quickly write it here so that we don't forget it. So what is this? Method area stores the class structures.
Okay.
Heap stores the objects created. And stack stores the data and results. PC register. Being executed, that is important. Being executed currently, only the latest register address will be stored, and this is other language codes. like C, C++ methods. Okay. Now do you get a like high level
Yeah.
picture of
Yeah.
what is there in the JVM?
Yeah, Rajesh.
Okay.
Rajesh, and one more thing. These ones just to know is more than enough, right?
What's
In
that?
depth. You were telling about JVM, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Just the overall concept is more than enough. Right? Oh, this is the thing. This is the thing.
Yes,
Not
yes.
to-
We cannot see these things. We can just relate with what we are doing. That's why I am taking at the end, so that if I take at the first, definitely you will not remember, you will forget. Now what I can do, see here, I'm going to draw it. That's why I came now. So this object equal to new object. This will go into heap.
Okay, just knowing purpose is more than enough, right?
That is enough. That is enough.
Okay, that's my question.
You should know where what all goes where. So we have this classes. This goes into this point, and register we cannot see. The data also we cannot see here. It's in the other class, and we don't have a C++. So this is enough. And we have 3 more boxes. So what are the 3 more boxes? The execution engine, Java native interface, and native methods. Yeah, so execution engine is nothing but the actual interpreter. You have studied about interpreter in college.
Yeah, in between the program, anywhere it can disturb, it can stop or something like that.
Yes, which converts the which reads the byte code and starts executing, which interprets the byte code and it starts executing.
Okay.
That's the interpreter, and JIT compiler is just-in-time compiler. It is for performance improvement. And native methods and native interface is for working with input, output, C, C++, console. So all these things are native methods, and libraries for native methods are stored here. So the actual, so once these are done, so I will blank it out. So just a quick summary of what we discussed. The classes are, the first thing is class loader, which will load the rt.jar. Then it will load the JRE jars. Finally, it will load the custom library. Once these are done, the classes structure will be loaded into the method area. The objects which are getting created and the constants will be loaded in the heap. The actual execution of results data will be stored in the stack. The current address of where the program is currently executing, which instruction is being executed, will be stored in the PC register. And any other program, if you are going to use any other program, C, C++, or Groovy, those things, those methods will be loaded here because those are non-Java methods. It cannot be loaded in the first box. So JVM provides separate box for loading those methods. And below that, we have the execution engine, which is the important and the core. So he is like a boss. Once all the preliminary checks are done, the class loader is loaded and all the things are settled, this guy will come in. He will start executing the code. He will read the code and he will start executing line by line and do whatever is given in the code. For that, he uses the interpreter and the JIT compiler. And for native methods, for the fifth box, right? The fifth boxes, the fifth box, not only fifth box, for interacting with the console, for interacting with other programs, anything outside the Java, the native method interface, we call as JNI, Java Native Interface, that will take care of it. And For that, the native libraries will be stored in the last box, which will be taking care of it. So this, if you understand this, and if you are able to explain this to someone in the interview, you will give a good picture that you understand what is JVM and the basic feature of it. Even if you don't remember the complete picture, just tell few words on the important points are, you should know class loader, these method area, heap area, stack area, these three are important. PC register, no one will worry, and native method, no one will worry. So if you forget these two, no worries. A place to store the class structure, a place to store the objects, a place to store the results. These three in the memory. Then the core boss is the execution engine. He will take care of this. And even if you forget about the native method interface and the native library, you can forget, but native method interface is important, because that in the last line I've given, right? The C and C++ you can ignore, but I've given one line as console. For interacting with consoles, JNI is important. So you should remember this also. So if you can understand and like grab this picture into your head and just replicate this in interview or to whomever you're going to speak about Java, you will like give a clear picture that you will give a picture that you understand it clearly, or you know Java. So this box alone, take a screenshot, and you will find it in internet. I have not given anything new, but just the explanation I gave. But these diagrams you can find more beautifully in the internet, so you can read it.
Okay.
Is it good? Is it
Yeah,
clear?
it's clear, Rajesh. Yeah.
Okay, good. So this is a core part, and as I said, the reason I take at the very end usually is we have to go through all these other. If I tell a custom library without even using what is a custom library, you will not link. But now you can link that, oh, I gave in PALM and I got a libraries. This is what is loaded here. And there is something as when we work in the projects, when you do hands-on, at the end, if you link with the core, you will easily understand. Okay, so if everything is good, then we'll pause for today. We'll regroup tomorrow. We'll meet again same time.
Yeah, sure, Rajesh.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for joining. Thanks.
Thank you.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah,
Bye.
yeah, bye.